Hello, I'm Bees and welcome to my channel. Because today I'm going to be talking about Scream 7, which isn't a scary movie as such, but is scarily bad. Now this isn't going to be a full breakdown of the film, it's just going to be my first impressions, which are not great. Now the first Scream film is fantastic, and it arrived at a time when horror wasn't quite as dead as some other YouTube channels and horror films like to pretend. We had The Frighteners, From Dusk Till Dawn, The Craft, all brilliant horror films. As well as those classics, we also had masterpieces such as Sometimes They Come Back, again, Head of the Family, Lawnmower Man 2, Leprechaun 4, Children of the Corn 4, Hellraiser 4. Okay, maybe there were only a few good horror films floating around in this barrel of rancid shit.
This is the moment where the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
Scream 7 follows Sidney Prescott as she tries to maintain a quiet life far from her past, only for a new ghost face to emerge with a fixation on legacy, identity, and the mythology built around the original Woodsboro murders. The killings begin in a way that feels disconnected from Sidney's world, but the pattern quickly tightens, drawing her back into a nightmare she thought she'd finally escaped. The film leads into modern anxieties, digital manipulation, the distortion of personal history, and the way trauma echoes across generations, while delivering the series' trademark blend of tension, meta-commentary, and sharp character work. Rather than relying on shock reveals, this entry builds a slow, unnerving sense that Ghostface has evolved and that the rules of survival are shifting once again. I mean, based on that short overview, you'd probably be slightly intrigued. But don't waste your goddamn time. It's always going to be hard to talk about any sequel without looking back at where it all began. Scream is a fantastic, ahead of its time triumph that's bold enough to mock the horror genre's stupid character choices, yet still committed to letting those characters stumble into them and somehow make us enjoy every second. It felt like we were omniscient observers peering into a parallel dimension where horror tropes were both real and self-aware. The next two sequels don't hold the same fondness for me, but they kept the self-aware streak alive. Part 2 leaning into the idea of everything being bigger and louder in a sequel, and Part 3 openly dissecting horror trilogies. Scream 4 was the beginning of the end for me. I remember liking the reboot and social media angle, but everything released after that has just slid downhill. Scream 5, I genuinely just can't remember. Scream 6 threw everyone into the big city and cranked up the gore, which was, that was alright. Now we're at Part 7 and hey, yay, Sidney is back now after not being paid enough to be in Part 6. After a pretty cool opening sequence, 2 people brutally murdered by a ghost face or ghost faces, the film nosedives straight into nonsense, giving us a gaggle of forgettable and very unlikable characters, a plot so thin it's practically theoretical, and then when the big reveal finally arrives, the killer or killers launch into a monologue so long and so self-important that you're left shrugging, thinking, so? But that still doesn't explain why you murdered a bunch of people. The motive is so far up its own arse, it feels like the writer got a phone call saying, sorry, we need this script finished in 20 minutes. They panicked. You can almost picture the writer then closing their eyes, jabbing a finger at the page and declaring, right, we'll go with that one, that's the killer because they don't like kung fu movies or red crayons. You get a parade of stupid, unbelievable decisions from every direction. Our final girl and daughter of Sidney, Tatum, has a mobile phone but apparently forgets it can call the police throughout the film. There's multiple situations where any normal damn human being would be dialing 999 before their brain finished forming the thought to do so. Then there's Mark, Tatum's dad and Sydney's husband, a fucking police officer, for Christ's sake. He's just wandering around somewhere off screen instead of actually protecting his wife and child, despite knowing there's at least one psychopath trying to get all stabby with them. Finally, you've got Sydney, who supposedly wants to shield her daughter from trauma, but keeps dragging her into horrific, stressful, traumatizing situations. It's less protective mother and more let me show you how to shoot someone non-stop in the face, instead of a far more sensible run away from the masked lunatic. Some of the kills are decent, but the tone is all over the place. You've got someone being burned alive, you've got a nice disembowelment, you've got a handful of standard, stabby stabbings. And then suddenly someone gets lifted, has their head shoved onto what looks like a drink dispenser, which has a spike on it for some reason, and it causes liquid to come flowing from their mouth like some sort of grotesque novelty fountain. For a franchise that practically invites you to examine every detail with a magnifying glass, this entry feels like a parody of itself. It's as bad as it could possibly be. I suppose you could watch this film if you're in the mood to punish yourself. Maybe you enjoy terrible films. Maybe that's your thing, sitting there with a hat full of spiders, your slippers packed with butter, garlic sauce smeared across your stomach. You spidery, buttery, saucy bastard. Even with my expectations as low as I could get them before I watched it, this film still managed to disappoint me. Which is impressive, I suppose, in its own dire way. And so, Scream 7, you piece of shit, you get a 3 out of 10. 1 point for spelling Scream correctly, 1 point for the disembowelment, and 1 point because I'm actually in quite a good mood today. That's your lot, though. Have you seen Scream 7? I'd bloody love to know what your thoughts are on it. Share your hate, or if you're somehow delusional and actually liked it, tell me what I missed and understand that I still think you're wrong. This film is shit. Thanks for watching, you wonderful horror nerd. I really appreciate you spending some time with me. Peace be with you, always. Now I'm off to fill my slippers with butter.
He's the clown.